In the absence of having gotten to the 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet point on here, it's 11 a.m. and I will stand in to call the initial meeting of the Westfield Washington Township Plat Committee to order. So if staff could please call the roll.
Mr. McKay,
Here.
Ms. Morgan,
Here.
Mr. Montalone,
Here.
Mr. Pierce,
Here.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Quorum.
Excellent. Item first is election of officers. We need a president and a vice president. And perhaps one little bit of detail that Kevin and I were just chatting about and have exchanged some voicemails about is president obviously runs the meeting. But we here in Westfield for a lot of years now have had a tradition of doing a pre-meeting, which would be relevant community development staff members and president, vice president. It doesn't have to be a physical meeting, it rarely is. It's a Zoom thing. It's not a noticed meeting like other public meetings, because there's no quorum. It's just to organize the agenda and make sure we don't trip on ourselves. Make sure we actually know what we're talking about, and it's in the right order, and that everybody really is ready. So at some point, those meetings haven't been determined yet. Whoever fills those 2 spots will need to also have some additional time available. Could be 10 minutes, could be an hour.
And again,
we haven't talked about.
Traditionally, those are daytime meetings for the other boards and commissions that we do have a pre-meeting for. Those are traditionally a morning or a daytime meetings. I would imagine it would be similar situation here. We would set time. It'd be every other week, I suppose, as often as
The Advisory Plan Commission meets the 1st and 3rd Mondays, and we have the meetings to set the agenda at 9:30 on the Wednesday before. I'm trying to count little things like that happen, but that was always the same thing, 9:30 on the Wednesday prior to the Monday meeting. So it could be about that same time frame. So, anybody interested in being president of this August body? I don't know, that's polite stuff forward one at a time.
Is that out of this entire group or is that?
It's of the 5 of us, they're the officially appointed folk. So there is
if your name was
passion. We're on roll call and our president. Yeah, if somebody that has real passion, I could probably do it if you all would think that's wonderful, but I am not begging for the opportunity. To accept.
I would say same.
Or,
Like I can step in if needed, but don't need to like campaign.
and I would have the appropriate availability for pre-meeting whenever it is the folks that participate in coordinate calendars. So if anybody wants to nominate one of us, now would be a good time to do it.
I'll nominate Mr. Horkay since he seems to have a pretty good experience with
Good
these type
draft.
of meetings, so.
There's a bit of that.
Mhm.
A motion and a second.
Mhm.
There's no other motions to be made. Close that. All in favor, we can simply do this with a voice vote. Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I will resist the urge to speak. So, now we need a. Thank you. I feel good about this. We now need a vice president from the 4 remaining folk. So, they want to express some interest on being the vice president and entice a nomination from one of us.
And is that, what do you want out of the vice president position?
It's probably just going to be participating in the pre-meeting for the most part.
and
Help craft
filling
things.
in the event the president's
Yeah.
not able to attend. Filling in and running.
Place you're going to be anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take your pick, I guess.
I don't.
I'll nominate you.
Nothing I particularly care to do.
Go ahead. Nominate Steve. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
That's-
A motion and a second. So we'll go ahead and close the nominations and everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, now I have officers.
Congratulations.
Item next is basically staff reviews the rules and procedures for today's meeting.
So this, we don't really have any items of business, so we don't have a specific rule of procedure document to read, but I can read what I would, will normally be reading. We'll probably modify the plan commission's rules of procedure just a little bit. Okay, so tonight, today, we don't have any public hearing items. So if we had any petitions, the department would summarize the petition, highlight any changes or modifications since the item was last before the plan commission. The department would describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken, and the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes. And then the board will then act upon the petition. If we had public hearing items, the way the meeting would go, we would summarize the petition. The petitioner will be given 15 minutes to present their petition. The president will open a public hearing. Any individuals present will be given 3 minutes to speak. Anyone representing a group would be given 5. And we'd ask those representing a group to speak first. We would close the public hearing when all members have had a chance to be heard and any emails received during the meeting or forwarded on to you or read into the minutes. The petitioner would be given 10 minutes to respond to comments, and then the board would follow with any questions, comments, or concerns, and then vote upon the petition. General rules of conduct, we ask people do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices, and again, if you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. If anyone were to attend in a public hearing, we'd ask them to fill out a card, come up and speak. And then when they're done, they would obviously have a seat. We ask them to state their name and address into the microphone. Anyone who wants to email comments would be emailing them to the general planner's email address, and then we would forward them on to you all or read them aloud if they're short emails. And again, we like to remind everyone to speak directly, loudly as you can so that the microphone will pick you up. And if you're not speaking, don't have any private discussions, so the microphone again doesn't pick up the little side conversations.
Rolling.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a blank bullet point, which is over there. Would you want to do the staff thing now or wait until you report some comments later at the end to go through?
Yeah,
those?
I think if we just kick off with just kind of an introduction of the planning staff, if that's, with you guys just kind of set this in motion, and then I think we have a little bit of custom training for you guys just to bring you up to speed with kind of where you are in our processes and what your role is, and any questions. Just kind of things we can try to answer. I'll just kick off here again for maybe for the first time. My name is Kevin Todd. I'm the director of the development department here in Westfield, which entails not only planning and zoning jurisdiction, which is what this committee kind of functions under, but we also do building, permitting, inspections, and code enforcement in our department. So we have a pretty broad purview, and we manage. There's 16 of us. Well, once we hire another inspector to fill a vacant position, there'll be 16 of us on our team in total. The entire planning staff is here today, again, kind of to introduce ourselves to you guys, more resources for you. This will be the basis that you'll be seeing presenting projects to you as we meet. But I wanted you guys to get to know us a little bit here too. So just a little bit of my background. I've been with the city of Westfield, or started the town of Westfield in 2003. Kind of worked my way through the department. Yes, I know it's crazy. Yeah, I did around 6. Yeah, except you're not. That's true. Very close. I was here for about 3 years. I did leave for a year to go do consulting, planning consulting. I found that wasn't really my jam. I didn't love it. So an opening came back here. I came back to the city been back ever since. And, you know, it's a great place. I think that the vision of the city is really just, it's exciting to me to see where we're going and how we're growing and getting to work with this great team of people is really kind of what keeps me coming back. And there's a lot of great stuff going on, and it's exciting to be here. So I have a master's in urban planning from Ball State. This really is my first kind of place out of college. My first career stop. I guess my first and third, if you want to put it that way. But so yeah, I don't know anything else about my history. I'm happy to answer questions you might have, but AICP certified, which is a national certification for planners. It involves testing and certification. I mean, it's just like any other professional certification. So
And that's pretty cool, but we frequently have multiple AICP. There's planning departments and plenty of other communities that are lucky to have their director. So, yeah, CPP. Practicing, impressive, knowledge people. So, go on to the assistant director.
Yeah, Pam Howard, I'm Assistant Director of the department here. I've been here since 2015, started as an associate planner, became Assistant Director early this year, in January. So this was really my first real job out of grad school. I also have a master's from Ball State Urban and Regional Planning. And yeah, pretty much been here ever since.
Lauren Gillingham. I'm a senior planner here, and I've been here since August. This is actually, I think, my third municipality that I've worked with, so unfortunately not straight out of college. So I do have an undergrad degree in urban planning from Ball State. And I'm also AICP certified.
My name is Weston Rogers. Again, another Ball State grad, but a little bit of a twist. My background is in landscape architecture, which is a close cousin to planning. Right out of school, I moved to Florida and worked in the private sector with an engineering firm for roughly 6 years down in Central Florida. And then actually got licensed in Florida as well, being a landscape architect. And through my career, I've leaned a lot more into the master planning, site planning. Really, my old boss was actually AICP as well. So that's how I kind of got one foot in both of those camps. So really excited to go from one rapidly growing area to another up here in Westfield. And my whole career, I've only ever known rapidly growing communities. So it's been a really fun journey. Joined the city earlier this year, back in February, and it's flying by very quick. So
What community in Florida?
Orlando. I worked with Kim Lane out of Orlando.
Thanks.
So
Get that.
yeah, so worked all
Travel down there a lot.
worked all over the state really, but mainly focused in Central Florida.
So you'll notice we're very heavy Ball State. theme.
Yeah.
You didn't get that.
It's the only accredited
Yeah.
planning program in the state of Indiana. It has been for a while, so there's a lot of the planners in Indiana for Central Indiana on Ball State folks. I mean, we branched out a little bit over time. You'll need one of our.
Yeah.
Ball State here.
The Pocono outsider.
Yeah.
And if not Indiana, Ball State is usually a neighbor of Cincinnati University.
Mhm.
So.
We've tried. Branch out and get some other folks here, but just such a strong Ball State presence here. That's a lot.
Our Rachel was speaking to say,
As long as there's no tweeting in the meeting.
So
Up next, I guess.
Caleb Ernest, senior planner, joined the team in 2017. Undergrad and masters in urban planning at Ball State. I'm a talker, so I'm just gonna pass it on to Brian before I filibuster around.
Want to tell you, shout out.
My name is Ryan Collingwood. I joined the city earlier this year in January. Aforementioned, I went to UC down in Cincinnati. This is my first big boy job at school, so I'm just learning from my peers and my great team that we had given the second year.
I think you started, you didn't go to Ball State.
I guess so.
Dane Crabtree, I've been with the city since 2016. Undergrad at Purdue University,
There you go.
and then a grad at Ball State for urban planning. I graduated from Purdue with a degree in sociology and was sitting there going, all right, I don't want to be a sociologist. What am I going to do with this? It was fun. I loved it, but it probably should have been more of a hobby as opposed to an actual degree. So I decided I had to narrow it down a bit and went to Ball State for planning, got the master's there. Again, been here since 2016, also had a stint for a couple of years up in Anderson with the Madison County Council of Governments. And so that's obviously a far cry from here and what's happening here. So I see both sides of the coin on development and so forth.
We asked for a little bit of final information from some of our interested members here, and that was more to give the plan commission who officially appointed this body a good understanding of, just a possible understanding of some familiar, unfamiliar faces, where these people are, they don't want to stuff, some knowledge of it. I think it's pretty well known, so I didn't circulate anything, which things that have been helpful for the other people that were interested here, but I've been doing planning in Westfield since September 2000. I was originally appointed by the township trustee at the time, David Gill. Because in Village Farms where I live, we were still on the township. It's not that much of a town and a lot of township. So we actually had 5 members on the planning commission and the town had 4. That's kind of ran the show. Enjoyed it. When we got annexed, I tried to figure out who might I want to support in council election for the new seat that my area would have. And I asked them, no, I'll support you. It's not what I was asking, but okay. So eventually I ran. I was council for 15 years too. Not confident, but I'm still doing this. So it's kind of a little belt curve in my history in Westfield here. I worked at a million years at Simon until the COVID problem came along and they decided they would do about 15% of the workforce, and expensive guy was part of that 15%. That was unceremoniously locked off after 30 some years, but it's about time anyway. Guy doesn't fall, and I have more time for this kind of stuff. Or whatever that might be good or bad. So but that professional credential with David Gill, who I knew from the HOA board. Forever. That's how Perky got here. The rest of you can give us a little thumbnail sketch of yourselves too, if you're so inclined.
Sure. I'll go next. I'm Michael Pierce. I'm actually the assistant city engineer for Westfield. So I started out Purdue grad, started out out of school. I worked up in the Chicagoland area for about 4 years. I came down and worked for Westfield as in a different position as project engineer for about 3 or 4 years. And then I went and worked in the private sector for a couple of years or a year or so. And now I've been in this position since the end of May. And so very familiar with Westfield, worked here, done a lot of projects, and now in a new role and just trying to, I deal a lot with developers on the engineering side of things. So I'm very familiar with most of the projects we're already going to see anyway. So that's kind of my background.
And we actually, helpful background info that not everybody perhaps will know. In constituting the membership of this body, we needed to have at least 1 member of the plan commission. We needed to have 1 member from staff. City could have been public relations, have to be engineering, have to be community development. I kind of prefer not community development because you're all here to do your normal job anyway, so you probably don't need to have another hat to wear here. So that's how I got here, is the APC rep, and could have had a couple, but shockingly, the other, nobody really wanted to do it. And Michael Foss thought he'd be a good guy. We have somebody else who's Never hear who's boss talk, he did that too. Anyway, and then the rest are the members and, so. Go ahead, move on.
I'm Haley Morgan. I live all the way at the end of that side of Westfield, so almost Noblesville. We're like across the street from the Noblesville line. I'm an entrepreneur and a writer. I have 4 kids in the schools. I'm just invested in the community and want to see it developed well. And was I gonna say something? I don't remember what it was, but my grandparents moved here in like the early 60s, chopped down trees on their own lot, built their own house. Parents graduated from Westfield High School. I grew up in Fishers, saw that place just like go crazy. It was one main road when I moved there, and now it's what Fishers is. So kind of just have that perspective as it comes to what the development in Westfield is.
And you came to staff's radar screen by actually.
Oh, yes.
Something to bring to a different.
Yeah.
body, but-
Yes, we were doing some building in our yard. So I came to a meeting just like this.
BZA.
Yes, right. And it's still being built because things are very slow. So, yes.
I'm Justin Wiley. I'm a real estate agent for Berkshire Hathaway these days. I am a reformed general contractor, 25 years. I grew up in Marion, went to Purdue, went back to Marion for a family construction company business. And did everything from estimating, project management, safety director, vice president, until we sold it about 6 years ago. About the same time I moved over here to Westfield and liked the small town feel and saw that it had a lot of development opportunities. I thought that would be a good fit for me to get involved and get plugged in. So I know I built everything, vertical components from hospitals to dormitories. We built 90% of the Westland probably. It's some fraction of every building or the building itself. We did industrial services for GM, Chrysler, stuff like that. So small town, you get pretty good at Jacksonville trade, getting into every type of business there is. Built a lot of everything. And while I was there, I sat on redevelopment commission, chamber of commerce, economic growth council, just got involved in a small town. So I was looking to get involved in this small town in the same way. Makes it feel home, helps you connect people, and helps you push the town in the right direction. Here I reside on the library board. I have nothing to do with the library, just I was asked to do it and I couldn't figure out why. And then they're like, they're gonna build a building. I was like, okay. So I jumped on that board to get that building up. We're getting ready to get moving on that. I think we'll probably end up seeing some stuff across that. And then I've got my wife and 2 boys. And we've been here in Westfield for about, might be 8 years since we've been here. So that's about it.
Joe Montalon, Director of Operations for Westfield Schools. I moved here in '97 and grew up in southwestern Indiana, down by the beautiful city of Odin, Indiana, population 1,200. And when I had a chance to come up here and teach and coach at a neighboring school district, I picked Westfield because it seemed to have the core values that we had where I grew up. And obviously, you could tell Westfield was going to a slow. At that point, 146 was a 2-lane road, right? And you could back out on it and go wherever you wanted to go. That's not the case anymore. But I love Westfield. I've worked in Westfield school students since 2001. Assistant principal at the middle school, then principal at Shamrock Springs Elementary, and then finished a construction project and opened Maple Glen Elementary Was there for 11 years, been director of operations for the last 6. Sit in on the TAC commission for the last 6 years and part of the expansion of downtown 32 and for the last 2.5 years. And so anything I can do to help the city of Westville, I know you of you very well and have worked with you guys. You've helped us and our school district out immensely, and I greatly appreciate that. So anything I can do to return the favor, love to do that. So look forward to being a part of this group.
You understand the term TAC?
I wrote it down to Google that.
I just give us a
Technical Advisory Committee.
Okay, great.
And it's where folks come in and a precursor for building projects, commercial, residential, neighborhoods and things of that nature. And there's fire, Duke Energy, everyone that has an entity that touches and works with and for the city of Westville, if you would, is a part of that to give an eye on their plan and program to see if there's anything that we can assist and help with or give advice.
We need some wire, everything that needs a wire, a pipe, or a piece of fiber.
Yeah.
Somebody has to help make all that happen,
absolutely.
and that's something early on in the whole big process of what happens to
Great.
big thoughts that become reality.
Yeah.
So,
Prior to products getting to this group.
Mhm.
way off track.
Great.
So, questions from anybody?
Well, in our part, the introduction part, but thank you guys for your willingness to participate in this group. I think it'll be a good experience for you. Hopefully, we'll have things prepared in a way that makes it easy for you guys to do your job here. But I'll pass it off to you guys.
We had discussions of probably half a dozen different plan commission meetings. This group is coming. Anybody, it's about 8 or 9 people. Know anybody that might be interested? Yourself, start stepping up to the plate. We were getting down to the wire, and it occurred to me as I was sitting in Bridgewater a couple of weeks ago, and it's called a city connection meeting. Anybody that is involved in the community in almost any regard has an opportunity to gather. It's just a casual or social thing. And happens 4 times a year. Everybody's there that doesn't require multiple people to talk, but I chatted a little bit about what's coming up from Plan Commission, like some of the different things we were doing, and the prime opportunity to mention we need some bodies for plat committee. So I threw that out there, and
There it was.
Be there, and his boss happened to be there, and he said, "Yeah,
There it was.
we need it." At that point, we were still on at 4, but then that's right, you,
Yeah.
and now we've got our full complement of 5.
Awesome.
But nobody left out disappointed. Really wanted to be a part and couldn't because I wasn't a seat for him, so. Here we are. Anyway, all right, so there is no item of business, there is no public hearing, but we do have a miscellaneous item, and that's really the important thing that we're gonna do today, so that. Show's yours.
Alrighty, so we have a quick pretty cash, introduction presentation. So it's split in 2 parts. First part is just gonna be about subdivisions, plats, all of that fun stuff. The second half is going to go into the role of the plat committee and then various rules and procedures, associated with that. So, $1 million question, what exactly is a subdivision? What is a plat? In the most basic form, it's taking a piece of land, cutting it into smaller parts, typically to develop or sell. And that is done through the creation of a document called a plat. This is actually a 2-step process. You have your primary plat, which could include an overall development plan depending on the type of plat, the underlying zoning. And then your secondary or your final plat. In Westfield, we call that a secondary plat. Final is also a very common name used in other municipalities. So just a general view into the development process. This looks complicated, but it's not actually as complicated. So single family residential, you have your 100 lot Lennar subdivision. You start with zoning, and then once your zoning is in place, you get into your primary plat and your overall development plan. That's where you guys are. And this is for the entire project. So say it's gonna have 3 sections. It doesn't matter. The primary plat looks just at the overall development plan. It's a pretty big picture. It's the general number and location of lots. Then your overall development plan is essentially that same site plan, but with a little bit more focus on your common areas, your landscaping, your buffering against other uses, basically making sure that those things are in place, and that everyone is happy with them. So after that, you get into your final plat, excuse me, and this is done per section. So at this point, the developer will zoom in and then do the exact number of lots, location of easements, all of that stuff per section. And as done as each section develops. And then you get into construction. So non-residential follows that exact same thing, except they do not have an overall development plan. And they do have a detailed development plan that essentially does a similar thing as the overall development plan. This board is going to review primary plats and overall development plans. So here's an example of a primary plat and an overall development plan. And then zooming in here, you can see that they are essentially the same thing, but the overall development plan has a little bit more detail. So right here, a little bit tough to see, but this shows mounding. So there's a landscape mound with plantings on top. Right here, you have a little bit more detail on the plantings around the retention ponds. And then, of course, you have your topographic lines here. So zooming in even more, you can get into the individual pieces. So you have your blocks, and that is a piece of land set aside for future subdivision. You have your lots. So this is what eventually gets sold with each home, in a residential subdivision. Your common areas, this one has private alleys. So this is a common area that is owned by the HOA, not dedicated to the town. And then you have your dedicated right of way. So these are your public streets. And then the subdivision design could vary depending on the zoning and the use. So this is an example of a single family attached, basically a townhome product. So it's a little bit tough to see, but you can see how this is basically, the lots are blocked. Let me back up. The lots are in like individual buildings. So you can see this is one building, this is another building, but because they are attached units, they do have that attached line. And just like with a single family residential subdivision, you have your dedicated right of way, you have your easements, and then you have your blocks that are set aside for future development. There's a commercial primary plat. So this is a little bit more preliminary. You see your right of way here, and then you have your blocks. So essentially, as the end users are more known, they will come in and cut off the land as they need it. There's no point in cutting off lots if you don't know what your user's going to need. It will just make the process more complicated and you have to come back and change things. Why is this important? Well, first, it's required by state law that the Advisory Plan Commission of every municipality oversees land use and land subdivision. So it ensures the availability of utilities and services. So you can imagine if anybody who owned a piece of land could just cut it into 100 lots, you would quickly have trouble extending roads, fire, police. It would be a little bit chaotic. It ensures conformity to standards. So that each lot is wide enough, that each lot has access onto a road. That, the common areas are large enough to match the standards in the Unified Development Ordinance. And then it simplifies land transactions. And then because these land decisions are long lasting. So here's the oldest plat I could find in Westfield. It was done by Asa Bales. They might be familiar. And it was in 1837. So if you look at where these lot lines are, this is a modern aerial of those same lots. So So you can see there's been some changes. So these lots have been split. Some right of way has been acquired here, but all in all, you know, not a ton has changed. So now 200 years later, this land decision is still a thing, basically. So part 2, role of the plat committee. So this is a very simplified kind of power hierarchy. But so at the top, you have your city council, which then, in a sense, oversees the advisory plan commission and the BZA. So the advisory plan commission has empowered the plat committee to review primary plats, overall development plans, and subdivision design waivers. And then the plat committee takes input from staff, it's myself, my other planners, and the public through the public hearing process. So there are responsibilities related to plat review. The committee affirms that the plat complies with the standards of the Unified Development Ordinance. This includes lot size, frontage, size and location of dedicated right-of-way, street design, and then common area size and location, among other things. And this decision is based solely on the plat and the applicable standards. You kind of do need to divide it from any pending zoning decisions or future use of the property. Although you may not like the use, you know, this is kind of a ministerial act, a yes or no question, if you will. So if it meets all the standards, it must be approved. If it doesn't meet all the standards, it must be denied. And then not doing that can lead to some legal complications. So then subdivision control waivers, these are less common, but this committee may also grant waivers from design standards within the ordinance. So these design standards are really written for the 99% of cases. So say you get that 1% that needs to vary from a standard, for example, cul-de-sac design. Within the standards, cul-de-sacs can be no longer than 600 feet from the intersection to the end of the cul-de-sac circle, but in some cases that might be too little. If you have a geographic peculiarity with the site, if your site is maybe long and narrow, if you have to cross a stream, there may be some extenuating circumstances that would require a waiver. And that's something that would be included in the report that staff gives, and they would walk you through that process. So just some general rules for this committee. Members are discouraged from discussing any petition with anyone other than department staff or legal counsel. Please refrain from communicating directly with the applicant or their representatives. It is a violation of open door laws to have any kind of conversations done in the private, away from the public hearing space. So conflict of interest, please don't participate in a hearing for which you have any financial interest, bias, or other impartiality. If you do have a conflict, just please recuse yourself and take no part in the discussion or decision-making process. And that can be as simple as saying, I have a conflict, I cannot participate. Attendance, if you're unable to attend a meeting, please let staff and Mr. Jorge know via call, text, or email prior to the meeting. 3 unexcused absences, so an absence in which you didn't make anyone aware of your absence may result in removal from the committee. And that was very quick, but are there any questions?
Regarding attendance, there's also an opportunity to attend virtually.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, there is a virtual option.
So once the public emergency declaration ended with the state that allowed all committees to meet virtual, our boards and committees did adopt their own virtual meeting rules, and the Plan Commission's rule will apply to this committee as well. A quorum of the membership does have to be in person, so we will need at least 3 people in person to hold a meeting, but that does allow a couple people to be virtual if necessary, for whatever reason you have, whether you're ill or traveling, are still able to attend.
It's 2 meetings that you can have
In a-
virtual consecutive. But then the 3rd meeting, you have to be back here.
Yeah.
So Keep in mind.
I think
the
that there
virtual
are a
option
few,
Sounds good. It's got a
yeah,
little type window.
I think there are a few exceptions to that if it is because of illness or military travel, things like that.
And whatever it is that we have to vote on, whether there's 5-year or 3-year, it still takes 3 favorable votes to have something actually pass. It couldn't be a 2-to-1 vote because there's 3 people present, 2 absent. That doesn't carry the day. That has to be majority of the 5.
And to vote at a virtual meeting, you do have to have video availability because we have to see you when you vote. So we'll pull up the video on the screen if anyone's virtual to vote.
And what platform do you use?
Microsoft Teams.
I guess point of potential clarity too is, these projects are reviewed by Public Works Department and staff. We will provide a staff report for these meetings. So it's not like you as the plat committee members will have to be doing the review itself. In theory, that will be done prior to you getting a summary of it in the staff report. So.
Yeah.
And I was gonna ask that same question. I expect your report, if I looked at the C report and the plat committee report, if I shuffle them, I get confused. Because they're gonna be
It should
identical.
be
There's a,
identical, yeah.
yeah, there's a prescribed format that takes you through the history of how we got to having this thing in front of us in the first place, so. They're well written and very easy. to
Well,
follow through and help.
that's probably a good segue into like just logistics of how we get information to you. All of this information will be posted to an agenda, much like we do for plan commission or zoning appeals. That will be public and we will, I'm assuming it'll be the same timeline like we do with plan commission, probably the Thursday before this meeting. Someone from our department, probably Julie Soul, will get email from Julie. Sending you a link to that agenda with all of the materials that have their own separate links for the staff report and the actual plat document materials and other review materials. So all organized. Yeah, we should probably share something. You're not familiar with it. So that'll all come via email.
Yeah, which is good. Or if that's on the website.
So there's no hard copies of anything being delivered. We have done away with that, thankfully.
We don't even have to read.
Not to say that we don't have ability to get you something printed if you need it for some reason, but we found that digital is come a long way, like we're able to zoom in on things. It's actually clearer now probably than we did in paper version.
And all of the applicants are required to submit files as part of the whole process, so it's all there that way anyway. Yeah, it's not like it has to be scanned or anything.
Yeah, most of our process is fully paperless. I think of our TAC committee, the surveyor's office is the only one who still requires putting copies of their plans. I think all the other agencies are digital now. But back to Julie in the process, Julie Soul will email you a week before the meeting, asking if you're able to attend. To make sure we have a quorum if we do, and if we don't have any items for that meeting, instead she'll send an email saying we have no items for this meeting, so there won't be a meeting. And if you followed our planning commission process in the past, one change that we are making going into this plat committee previously, when primary plots and overall development plans went to plan commission, they weren't necessarily compliant at their first meeting. They were just given a hearing date when they filed. They will hold a public hearing, then they'd go back and make changes and come back for a vote. With this new process, they will not be on your agenda until they fully comply. Of course, pending any waivers, if they requested a waiver, that the waiver approval would determine compliance. So they won't, in most cases, will not be a 2-meeting process with you. We will go through our review, they'll go through their technical review. Once they're compliant, they'll send their mail public notice. We'll submit the newspaper public notice for the next available meeting, and they'll come to this meeting expecting to receive a vote that night. And I guess regarding the ex parte communications, we actually have a couple members here who are on our TAC committee that will have that. But as far as communicating between board members, that's what really shouldn't happen outside the meeting. And then if you're not on the TAC committee, we do ask that you try not to reach out to the petitioners. And if they reach out to you, please let us know. It's not a hard written rule, but it's definitely preferred that that communication does not happen outside of the members who are on our technical committee, who will have communications with them through their outside roles.
Yeah, I'd say with the history that since I've been here, most of the members of the public that show up to the public hearings, the primary plats and overall development plans, their primary concerns are with drainage and everything like that, because the zoning has already been established. There shouldn't be any surprise necessarily that what is being developed is coming through as that. And so, you know, that's, I think, a great reason that Michael is on this is because he deals with the drainage and deals with the right of way, because traffic and drainage are probably, I mean, 95% of the concerns at this level. And because their plans are going to be compliant when they come to you, in theory, the public may have questions. Michael can just hopefully explain those away, those concerns away, because, you know, the public might say, hey, could you think about doing this? And can you do this? The developer can certainly take those into consideration, but there's no requirement that they do these because the plans should be compliant, so. And oftentimes developers will try to be a good neighbor, and if there's more trees that can be planted somewhere, they might go ahead and do it, but they wouldn't necessarily be required to do that. Traffic and drainage, you that flats, that's quite about. I mean, that's a lot of conversation.
Yeah, landscaping,
Landscaping, buffering,
tree preservation.
Which we can again kind of outline. Those requirements in each report, it's different for every project.
Yeah, and just to add to, if anybody has any questions after looking at the staff report, our contact information is always at the end of the staff report. And we're usually on standby alert on Thursdays and Fridays when those go out, so we will not be surprised if we get a phone call or a text or an email. We usually try to get back really quick to clarify any questions you have about the staff report.
In the event you are needing to attend virtually, the same emails also do include the Microsoft Teams information. Simple link to click to be able to get to the my particular case, computer opens it really slow, so the Teams is going to be kind of a piece of software, but some days it connects pretty quick, but on the pre-APC meetings, I'm just make sure I've got the computer awake at 9:15, ready to like for the 9:30 start. And it could have just gone up the machine things around diagnostics, but get them all, so just pretty organized.
So we've thrown a lot out there. I'm sure you may have questions as you kind of, maybe not now, but as you kind of want to get into this. I mean, we're certainly here, like I said earlier, to be a resource for you guys. And as Wes mentioned, and all of our contact information is going to be on the staff report. So feel free to reach out to the planner on that report or me directly or any of us. Reach out. I answer questions.
At future meetings, are we going to have somebody legal on the call, at?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's the plan. We'll also have legal representation, just like we do it all around.
Planning Commission, generally, they're present at City Hall and come to the workshop meetings.
I don't know.
Think that they're gonna show up.
Some virtual, I'm guessing.
Just they can do virtual, and they don't have to have a presence because they are just a legal entity that keeps us our guardrails and causes the city to get sued. But if there is a legal question, we'll have somebody who can just say, hey, what about this?
Yeah, that's another thing. If you're ever questioning whether you have a conflict of interest in the project, that's who we recommend you reaching out to. Ashley Albert with Taft is our attorney for these boards, so we'll share her contact information with you all, and she'll be most likely the one at the majority of these meetings. If she has a conflict, she'll send someone else from the firm to represent.
And that's why I threw out the library thing.
Yeah.
Is, you tell me whether I got a conflict or not.
Yeah.
If I'm allowed to participate in that, hey, yes, no, move the shrubbery or whatever, but
Yeah.
so abstain from the vote, or if I just have to bow out of the whole thing, that's what I need to.
Okay, yeah, we'll connect you with Ashley for that.
Because this isn't really a discretionary board of conflict and plan, yes, right?
I was, so, I mean, boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the conflict, all I'm doing is picking, there isn't,
You're affirming that the standards are met.
yeah, there isn't really a,
So.
but that's for your attorney to
Yeah.
articulate to me, not for me to decide. So I just throw it out there, tell me what you want.
Sure.
I expect this is all gonna be fairly straightforward, and this will be one of our longer meetings, probably. So we're
Yeah.
So is the public only coming to this meeting now? Or is the public
They get to
allowed
come
to
to
go to
whatever
both
meeting they
meetings?
wanna come to.
What's that?
Public gets to come to whatever meeting they wanna come to.
Okay, they can still go to the other meetings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the plan commission will still hold public hearings for all zoning matters. So when something's coming in to rezone a property, whether it's to an existing zoning district or to a PUD, planned unit development district, those public hearings will occur at the plan commission level. This body will hold the public hearing for the primary plots and overall development plans. And then the plan commission will still approve the detailed development plans, so those don't require a public hearing. They just appear on the plan commission agendas for a vote.
And since this is a brand new organization, it may take a lot of the public a while to figure out that we're here.
Sure.
And somebody that might have shown up at an EPC meeting to participate in the public hearing may show up later thinking, what was my opportunity to talk about this? And then they'll realize, oh, I gotta do this at 11 o'clock on Monday. And they can submit
Email comments.
via email and during public hearing, as long as there's nobody in the room, still announce the fact that, well, actually, we gotta be able to broadcast.
Yeah, that's something that IT is working on, the ability to broadcast it. The agendas are still public. Any petitioners coming in with a primary plot or overall development plan is required to mail notice to interested parties, and that we recently updated. The rule is now 2 property owners deep, period. It used to be 2 property owners deep or 1/8 of a mile, whichever is less. This board is now just 2 property owners deep. So depending on where they live and if it's in a subdivision or in a more rural area, that's probably going to change the number of property owners they're looking at. But so they will mail the notice to those people, and if there's a neighborhood nearby, sometimes the word will get out pretty quickly via, next door, HOA emails, Facebook, things like that. And then we do post legal notice in the Hamilton County Reporter. I don't know how many people actually look at that. I don't tend to look at legal notices in any newspaper, but yeah. But yes, and then our agendas are all posted online the Thursday before the meeting for all boards. So if people are looking at the agenda, this meeting will be the same day as our city council meetings. Our city council meetings are the 2nd and 4th Monday. So I guess anyone looking at that agenda will notice that there's another agenda that appeared with it. So if people observe it, they may find out through that way. But realistically, we don't see a lot of public comment for the primary plots and overall development plans in most cases.
Be all uncommon for somebody that felt they had reason to make public comment to be commenting or appointing process. It's like, no, that already happened somewhere else, or you need to go there for that. It's not always real clear to the public where they really should be directing their comments, what point in time. So we can educate them.
But you said this one is 1st and 3rd Mondays at 11, right?
No, second.
I spoke on that earlier, but
Okay, yeah, because
to transposing my ABC days.
Second.
This is the name of the
Second.
calendar. Yeah,
Right.
it is 2nd, 4th. You should have calendar entries from Julie, I guess, already on there. Somebody said, that's right, the calendar entries come
Okay, and then the 9:30 meeting is both the 2nd and the 4th as well.
Well,
That would be the
We have to figure
The
that, we'll
week
need to put out
before.
for sure, but
If
that,
we do them, we can pick whatever day and time for that, so
as long as it's
as long as.
a day ahead of when the agenda has to be on the website for
Yeah,
the meeting content to be out there for the public.
so yeah, so it'd probably be the first, generally the first and third week of the month, because it would be prior to the agenda posting, sometime between Monday and Wednesday.
we'll need to set a time for that because many of us are involved in a pre-council meeting, which also happens at,
That Wednesday at 9:30, so we wouldn't want to do the same time.
yeah. But put our heads together.
Good to hear back
Those
those
of us
about
that'll
that.
be involved, figure out what.
Are there any more questions? We'll continue through the agenda. There's obviously no items continuing to the future meeting since we haven't had. Yep. And then there's always reports and comments. If there is anything of concern to a plat committee member, it's just an opportunity to bring it up. If you have nothing, it's fine as well. Plan Commission liaison. Chances are I might have to go first. Unless somebody wants to volunteer to be at every plan commission meeting to explain what happened this group later. Kind of go over the highlights of whatever it is, particularly things that might be relevant to what we decide here. And then community development blesses us with focus and wisdom and knowledge and helpful updates on things that are happening.
Nothing more today from us.
All the kind of stuff that would have been your content.
Yeah,
Linked to all to the meeting content.
we've already covered it, but we'll use this time to give you any updates relevant to what's going on in our world.
We're set for now. This is obviously the end of October, but similar to other bodies. Towards the end of the year, there will be 2023 calendar that will determine that we will also have to approve for. And actually, is that already taken care of by APC?
I don't know if you brought it to ABC for a vote. We did put it together though.
Well, there's
so
a
we can
broad
bring that here.
array of
Yeah.
meetings on that. We foresee plat on that. So,
I don't think the Light Committee was on that, but I think the.
but APC, story could take care of that since on the board chart, we're below essentially,
Essentially, it doesn't make sense. They want.
but maybe we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, so it is just, again, the second and fourth, Monday of the month, pending any holiday conflicts. If there's a holiday, we'll move it as we see fit, usually just to the next day, that Tuesday.
I might be able to video in on the 14th, but I think I'm gonna be on a flight.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to run the meeting.
The next one,
Yeah,
well, your conflict might not be a conflict, because I think the library's plat is on the next one. Fingers crossed.
If you're not here, then.
But don't log in.
yeah.
And is there any other potential attendee for that meeting or the library like?
The only one. That's the only plat we haven't processed right now. Must be able to submit it more recently.
Yeah, just for fun, I brought some paper copies of plats for those of you who may have never seen one before. I can lay this out. Yeah, so that top one is the primary plat, and then the bottom is the secondary plat. Yeah. You're gonna model the plat. Yes, yep, so that's primary. You can see it's one page, pretty simple. And this is actually for the Grand Millennium, which is what the library is looking to go into lot 2, up in the top left. Yep,
Has that been approved?
not yet. So that is the one that might be on this next upcoming meeting.
That one should be on this upcoming meeting.
Yeah, we're waiting on a resubmittal, so it's all about the resubmittal timing. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Not
that's
really the plat, but I understand there was a date picked for groundbreaking,
Yeah, I
in
mean,
which there were
I
a
don't,
lot of other
I don't
things
think
happening on
we
that.
realized we didn't realize the whole thing hadn't been approved yet, and we're ready to turn dirt, so
Mhm.
Well, that's not a requirement.
it's
You
not.
can turn dirt whenever you want. You don't have to allow it.
as long as you don't continue to turn dirt.
Right, I see, yeah.
Ceremonial.
Yeah.
Public ceremony, I think that's what they're wondering, what is that date? Is it still the original date?
Yeah, but it's hard to set contracts
Yeah.
when you don't have an approval on something. I mean, so we were signing our contract with the contractor and obviously need to order some steel.
But you're not gonna turn the dirt on that day after all.
Well, I mean, the ceremonial thing, I don't care about. I mean, that doesn't affect anything. It's more the contract, like plot has to be done and approved for contract signing, or you're starting to take risks, right? So, yeah, just learned that last week.
Yeah, so then this is yeah, so this is the secondary plat. This is actually approved administratively by staff. This is more just to show the differences between the two. And it is only for 3 lots, I believe. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is where you kind of zoom in and specifically plat off the pieces that you're developing. And then at the point where they're gonna develop the rest of these lots, they will then come in for a secondary plat for those lots.
The secondary plat is what actually legally creates the lots. Once that document's approved, it's signed by the director of this department. And if it's within the city limits, the director of the Public Works Department, if not, the county commissioners. And then that document is taken to the Hamilton County Recorder's Office where it's actually recorded. And that's when they actually, through their GIS system, break up the lots into smaller lots.
So you can't do both reviews at the same time.
You can. No, there's just a waiting period of, I think we finally reduced it to 7 days to comply with the statute. We used to have a 30-day waiting period. You couldn't record the secondary for 30 days after the primary plat, which I think may have been an old carryover rule. And now the state says 7 days, so that's what our rules are.
Back to the illustration you had from 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, back when Ossa Bales was.
And the more sheets you get to, the closer and closer you get here at the scale, so it's easier to read. Not that any of us have all that.
And once they submit the review, how long did it take you guys to circulate that, to sign up on your end?
Well, really just depends. I mean, for a secondary plat, it goes to the technical advisory committee, just like anything else, and by the comes back of revisions that need to happen. And then sometimes they get the revisions done and the Mylar that need to be signed back to us in a week or so. And sometimes they sit for years after that. It just depends on how quickly the developer or whomever wants to create those lots to do whatever they want to do.
And the type of project. So
Yeah.
for residential projects, they have to have a lot of the earthwork done before they can record their secondary plat. They have to have, Michael can probably speak to that a little more.
There's also bonding requirements that have to be in place for public infrastructure, storm, that erosion control, that sort of thing. So we have to have those things in place before we can sign off, or they have to be built and accepted by the city.
Yeah, so they'll usually have all their utilities and their streets done, street signs, all that done before they actually record the secondary plat. So when we have phase 1 secondary plat, I guess, for a new subdivision, it's frequently a year between when they actually submit the secondary plat and when it's being signed, because they haven't started that work. For the later sections, sometimes it's much quicker, because when they're doing the work for section 1, they also start the work for section 2. Sometimes they'll kind of work ahead in that. And then commercial is a little bit different, because there's not that same infrastructure requirement, because we're typically looking more at a single lot and all the work gets done with that lot.
So on the Grand Millennium, since that's our sample there, they've submitted once and you've given back information for them to change.
Yeah.
To change, so they owe you a resubmission.
We're just waiting on those revisions being done and back to us.
That is.
And when was that information given?
Lauren?
I would have to check my emails, but it's been a month. It was looking like they were going to be on, this meeting today. And then they
Didn't make it.
didn't make it.
Okay.
Go steal somebody around. You thought you were gonna wait for some guys. I haven't.
I have a process question. I kind of just like keep an eye on community sentiment on like, what are people thinking about the things that are happening around on social media, just because that's kind of my work and what I do. And it seems like people get frustrated with like, wait, this was approved like 20 years ago and now this is happening. Is that what is that what they are kind of referring to of like, if a plat got approved for like like a business park or something like that, but then it sits and it doesn't come to fruition, they still work from that same general document?
There's no expiration.
Okay,
To these approvals.
okay,
And even if there were for the plat, it's the zoning that
Yeah.
allows you to do something.
Yeah.
So if something's zoned industrial, unless someone comes in and zones it otherwise, someone will
Sure.
always be permitted to do an industrial
Sure.
project there.
Yeah.
Whether it's the one approved 20 years ago or a new one that comes in today.
sometimes it seems like it's like, oh, this was approved as like an apartment complex, but now it's next door to this thing that maybe economically isn't advantageous to having,
Yeah.
whatever there, like, there's no trees that are in this thing, things like that. Is that generally this process is what people are?
A lot of people will show up to today's public hearings asking those questions.
Yeah.
when In fact, it's not really relevant to the process at that point.
Okay.
Zoning had been done 20 years ago. This is
Sure.
literally just creating the road right of ways, creating the lots and things like that.
Yeah,
But those questions do come up, to Bob's point earlier, a lot of the public doesn't
the
know
wrong
what
spots,
steps.
yeah,
Like, yeah, I hear you, but that was settled 20 years ago when the
Right.
town council or whomever.
We have a real world example of that. That was an APC thing fairly recently.
Mhm.
There's some development that's now occurring south of the Meyer store
Mhm.
on Spring Mill, where there's two large lots. And the access to the villa homes and the townhomes that are on the east end of that was all was all approved with the Maple Knoll PUD in like 2007. And it's just been sitting there waiting for the time that it's going to be of interest to a developer. So there's a bank that's coming along. Or actually, no, it was the daycare, right? There was more stuff. There's a bank coming along on the northern part of it. But the residents back there were aghast that it's like, wait a minute, all these people are going to pull off of Spring Mill up this interior street that we used to get to our residents and then go on this north-south street to get that daycare.
yeah.
They can't do that. It's like, actually, they can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, how did we not know about it? It's like, well, because you weren't here
Right, yeah, and nobody's like
and there's no reason.
putting billboards up in the neighborhood
We're
about
not
it or anything.
obligated to go back and tell
Sure.
everybody as they join the community. Oh, by the way, prior to your arrival, some things
Yeah.
happen that you might want to know about.
Which
There
there
are
are
ways
ways
about-
to.
Sure,
Because
sure.
they have it, unfortunately, we just don't get asked those questions a lot.
Right.
until
Well, you wouldn't know,
something's
that,
happened
yeah,
already,
right,
Then that's where that comes.
And one of those residents could have gotten kind of curious one day. I thought, yeah, that's a nice lawn that's out there. It's really going.
Yeah.
Is that just a lawn? And they pick up the phone and call somebody here who's like, well, as a matter of fact, it's been nicely mowed grass for a long time. However,
yeah,
here's what could be there and it was already approved.
Yeah.
and-
Before you ask the real estate agent, before you
If
start.
your realtor knows.
Just
yeah,
saying.
oh, yeah,
That's a big if. but-
Another one's the one at 100 First and Union
uh-huh,
down there where it was
Oh.
for basically big box stores back in
I'm-
late 2000s.
that's the one I was referring to,
Yeah.
where people were like, what's
Which
this
is
here?
interesting.
The raccoons,
Yeah, which is interesting because the PUD that was approved back in the late 2000s was for like big box stores.
Mm-hmm.
So what came along, I think most people would agree is a better
an improvement, yeah,
improvement. It might not be exactly what they want to see there. But it's not like if this project gets denied, it goes away completely. It would literally still be available for big box stores. So there is also that give and take and well, if it is better at all, maybe it is a good idea to move forward with this, even if it's not perfect.
for sure.
That site itself has a lot of history too. That was one of the first things that I was dealing with when I was first on plan commission, when there was a neat little curb layout center that was to be anchored by a Kroger store. And if you looked at the site when Louth, the developer proposing that came along and got approved. Most of those trees weren't there.
Mhm.
It was a fairly open site still at that point in time, and the forest, everybody's all worked up over.
Mhm.
It's like, that was allowed to grow because nobody was doing anything,
Yeah.
and there were 2 or 3 other intermediate steps where somebody had a different thought that came to us, some got more light of day, or decided, yeah, I'm not doing this after all. And then finally, the one that
Mhm.
caused the forest to go away, because they were more serious, and hopefully will follow through, because there's a lot of things that are important in that, as far as city connectivity, because there's a new road to go through there that's gonna be part of the whole infrastructure in there, but.
Yeah.
It's amazing how long some things can take.
Mhm. Well, and everything's changed so much since those days. I mean,
Cool. Our public hearing is still open, so just so we don't forget to actually adjourn it.
Well, the meeting's still open.
Meeting, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean, sorry.
Right, and this is I think, kind of relevant discussion for community development department or something under place. If there is anything else, we can continue to talk. If not, we can go ahead and adjourn, and like everything else, that requires a motion. Oh, we really want to stay in this meeting, we may not get a motion, but we need a motion of a second to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Still moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'm not second that.
Motion and a second. Everybody in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to adjourning? We're adjourned at 12:11.